It's time for another god review. This time, it's going to be the River of Souls, the second set to come out for Kamigami battles. I already did the Battle of 9 Realms and those gods, but now it's time for the Egyptian gods to get their video. I hope you've been enjoying Kamigami battles as much as I have. The game definitely shows that it's just more than a regular deck building game. It's very depth and has a lot of things going on. As I mentioned in my previous video, as clear as the rules are, this is my understanding as well as other players that I play with. We try very hard to make sure we understand the rules fully before we play the game or start analyzing the gods and their abilities. If you do see anything wrong about a god's ability or a warrior's ability, let me know so I can further correct that in a later video. Before I talk about the new gods, I do want to talk about some of the warriors that benefit the previous gods from Battle of the 9 Realms. Jeff John, for example, with her abilities past and future, work really well with the warriors Sphinx, Griffin, and Madrid. Reason why is that with Sphinx ability being education, you can actually use Jeff John's ability to look at the top 5 cards and adjust them how you like to guarantee that Sphinx ability of education to work. Or Griffin, you can use Griffin's ability to adjust what's going to be on the top of the deck, so that way you can just perform Jeff John's education. Or Madrid, which allows you to take a warrior from your discard pile and put on top of your deck, which again, if you choose Edification and the card is a warrior, you're going to get the effect. So these 3 cards work really well with Jeff John. Another card from Battle 9 Realms that works really well with the warriors is going to be Hades. These 2 cards that evolve banishing, pretty much anything involves banishing to the Nether Realm, Hades' abilities trigger off that. So Cherurum and Jackal are going to be 2 cards that really work well with Hades. Aside from that, the other warriors don't really benefit or don't really work anything really amazing or worth mentioning with the gods from the previous sets. They're going to be very good with them in their own way, but nothing really stands out, at least to me right now, as Jeff John does with these 3 warriors or Hades does with these 2. Before I talk about the gods, I want to go over the temples that come with the set. Interestingly, the 6 temples that come in this set are actually the same 6 temples in terms of effect as the previous set. It's interesting that they would do that, but I think the reason why they did it is because if you're playing with a full 6 and one of the players before you chooses the Temple of Nabu and that temple's effect is something you want to use for your god, you still have a chance of getting that temple with the Temple of Delphi. So it gives you some more options, and that way you're not completely out of luck if you didn't get a temple that supports your god. The first god from the River of Souls lineup is going to be Horus. First ability, I have Horus. Banish a faced-up warrior from the Hall of Heroes. That's pretty useful because this set happens to have a lot of unforgiving, very strong warriors, especially attacking warriors. So be able to banish one from your opponent, be able to grab one on your turn, or their turn I should say, that's very useful so they can set it up. Hopefully don't, from the Hall of Heroes, another warrior doesn't pop up, but that's something to keep in mind that you can somewhat control the Hall of Heroes. Horus' second ability, Birds of Prey, which is React, is when you attack, choose one opponent to reveal their hand. If you have 5 more cards in their hand, they must discard a card of your choice. So that's very strong. Very strong as in if a player typically have 5 cards in their hands before their turn starts, you're going to get rid of 1 card from them. So that's very useful. One card that works really well with Horus is going to be a Moot for the offense. Reason why is that with Horus, when you attack, you're going to be able to choose how to do that effect to choose one opponent, make them lose 1 card from hand of your choice. And then they're going to have to use some disciples if they want, or have to block this attack. And any disciples they use, they lose those disciples because they're banished from a Moot's effect. That means that they can probably lose 1 card, and then 1 or 2 cards, or 3 cards short on their coming turn, being if they were disciples such as blockers, or defender guardians, or temple guardians. Keep in mind, this doesn't be the opponent you're facing, it could be one opponent, so anyone on the field that you're against is going to be able to be hit by that effect. Something to keep in mind though is that aside from a Moot, cards that don't really benefit Horus is going to be Madrid. Reason why is because Madrid, you already choose a player with 5 or more cards in their hand, and then they discard one of their choice. So if you use Madrid first, or if you use Kakulululu first, that means you don't get Horus' ability because they're going to have less than 5 cards in their hands. From the previous set though, something like Scorpio will be great, because when Scorpio attacks, well, you can use this React first, get rid of 1 card, and Scorpio gets rid of another card from their hand, which is really beneficial. But on the flip side, same thing from the previous set, if you use Pisces, Pisces has 5 or more cards in their hand, so if you use Pisces first, you won't be able to use Horus' ability. So you gotta keep in mind, when it comes to the other cards, or warriors I should say, that get rid of cards from your opponent's hands, you want to make sure you don't conflict with Horus' ability if you're going to choose to do Horus' ability. Typically, I would say Horus' ability would be a little more beneficial, or a lot more beneficial, because you can choose what card they have to discard, as opposed to other cards like Pisces. This only chooses a disciple, or the other cards such as Kalululu, that's going to be a choice of their choice. They can discard from their choice. So with Horus, you got a lot of control over what card you want your opponent to lose. Of the 3 options the Temple of Horus has to choose, none of them really benefit him too much, but Temple of Uppsala, that might be the most beneficial one, just because of Horus' ability of attacking, you're going to be on the offense. So this temple is going to be able to boost that offensive attack you're throwing at your opponent. Gameplay-wise, these abilities serve, I would say, beneficial all game. Being able to banish warriors in the Hall of Heroes controls what your opponents will potentially purchase or not purchase, and being able to constantly knock cards out of their hands, even at the opening stage of the game. If you somehow make an attack on first or second turn, well, not first turn, but second turn, if you make an attack, your opponent's going to start out with 1 card less, meaning they're going to have 1 less purchasing power or 1 less defender, what be it. They're not going to be in a good spot early on in the game, which will give you a starting benefit. You know, I just realized I was referring to the Temple of Uppsala, but that's not from this set. It's the Temple of Edfu that's from this set. Again, both the temples have the same effect from both sets, so it doesn't really matter which one you use. But if you have the River of 9 Souls, it is the Temple of Iruf you're looking for. If you have both the sets, then it's either one, Temple of Uppsala or Temple of Edfu, that you're looking for. Next is going to be Isis. Isis has some defensive abilities and a utility ability, or at least that's what I call it. Her first ability, Mother's Love, is a react, discard a disciple, plus 2 defense. You may activate this ability once per attack. So that's really useful, but it will draw your hand short because you'll discard Disciple. So if you don't have any blockers, Temple Guards, or Sacred Guardians, you have to resort to dropping Disciple. So Bishops or Priestess or Magi's, you would be result to dropping them in order to give yourself that plus 2 defense. And it's an ability to activate only once per attack. So that means if you're going to attack with, let's say, 4 different warriors chained to being back to back, you can pop that out 4 different times. Her other ability, Wisdom Stars, is an act. You pay 1 life off her. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put 1 card in your hand, and put the remaining cards on top of your deck in any order. That is a very useful combination with several warriors. Example would be with Griffin. With Griffin, you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 in your hand, and put the other in a discard pile. So depending on what order you place them in, you can use that, draw a card, use Griffin, draw the other card you have. Or you have another option such as Cherubim, which allows you to take the bottom card from the warrior deck and place it on top of your deck. Although you have to banish this card at the end, but you can do that and then activate Isis' ability to pay 1 to get that card, well, after its effect, draw that card you want, or another card, Magi, which is very useful. Magi lets you look at the top card of any deck and choose to leave that card on top or place it at the bottom. So you can also combo that in one way. You can have it so you can use Magi to check first and then use Isis' ability to grab that card. Another one will be Jin. Jin's going to be a draw 2 card, which is amazing, but I would say any card that says draw 2, or Sphinx here, which is a draw 1, or Edification, where you can actually rig the Edification, so it will be a warrior on top because you already see what's already on there, or the next card after you draw will be a warrior. Again, Capricorn from the previous set, Sagittarius from the previous set, Gemini from the previous set, Noble Star, Libra, Aquarius, Virgo. Any card that allows you, any warrior I should say, that allows you to draw cards, benefits Wisdom of the Stars. So all the 3 cards that you're going to go through, the 2 that go back on the top, you're going to be able to grab those in some manner with those other cards. Temple-wise, Temple of Naboo, or Temple of Khonshu. Interesting. Between the 2, I would say Temple of Khonshu will be the better option, simply because Temple of Naboo is when you use a warrior or disciple for defense, gain 1 on this temple, but it's when you use the warrior or disciple. Using Isis' effect of discarding a disciple plus 2 defense, that's an effect coming from Isis herself. She's using that ability, not the warrior, disciple being discarded. That's not using, you're not using that disciple for defense, you're using her ability, but the cost of that ability is discarding a disciple. So gaining points on Temple of Naboo, not that easy, or it doesn't complement her abilities. But the Temple of Khonshu is going to be even better, because when a warrior allows you to draw a card, gain 1 in this temple. And as I mentioned, with all the warriors available for drawing with Isis, that complements her abilities. Placement wise, with all the abilities to draw within the game, or the abilities to look at the top of your deck and do edifications or what be it, I say Isis is pretty good from mid to late game. Early game, she might not be that best, just because you're not going to have a lot of cards in your deck. So you're not going to have a lot to go through, and you're going to have a lot to look for. You're going to be mostly getting maybe Magi's or Disciples to draw more cards, or purchase more warriors, I should say. But mid and later game, when you have your deck full of warriors and Disciples, you don't want to draw too many Disciples. You want to be more active with your warriors. Her ability is going to help complement finding warriors, as opposed to earlier game where your decks are comprised mostly of Disciples. Next card from this set is going to be Bastet. This one, honestly, it's hard for me to comment on this one because this god, just like cats, she's all over the place. Her first ability, 9 lives, is a react, a little similar to Hell's ability from Battle 9 Realms, except Hell's ability is any god, and you have to discard your whole entire hand. Her effect is that when you're reduced to 0 HP, or less, I don't have less than 0, but less, perform Adjudication. If you draw a card as a warrior, you have 1 HP instead. What's nice about that, you can do it multiple times. Unlike Hell's ability from Battle 9 Realms, you have to discard your hand, and you have to at least discard 1 card. With Bast, it's going to be every Adjudication, so as long as you keep pulling warriors out from Adjudications, she will keep surviving every attack coming at her until your turn comes up and hopefully you can do something to stop it. And of course, you don't lose your hand doing that, which is very useful, but again, that's only just for her, not for anyone else, so just she can keep living, because, it's her 9 lives. The wacky thing she does, which is Music of the Spheres, that's an ability that's going to be, honestly, Bast is more of just, the game is for fun, obviously, but Bast is definitely a for fun god because of her ability. If you have 1 or more cards in your hand, each player chooses 1 card and passes it to the next player on the left. She's definitely a god meant for group play. Competitive-wise, not that there's any competition going on, but competitive-wise, as in, if you prefer to play a more I want to outsmart you and beat you kind of gameplay, not just a let's play for fun kind of gameplay, Bast is not going to be very great option for that. The warriors that could work with her will be Madrid from her set, or Kalululu. The nice thing about these two is that they're going to minimize what cards are in your opponent's hand. Of course, you can only do one or the other, you can't do both because of just their restrictions to having 5 more cards in hand, but typically if a player has to discard a card from their hand, they're most likely going to discard a Disciple because they want to keep their warriors, and if he uses Bast's ability, you're probably going to be able to get a good chance of grabbing that warrior if they don't have any choice, or grabbing something that's going to ruin their combination they might have coming up. From the previous set, Pisces will be another option. Pisces has very similar effects, but they discard Disciples, so it's going to guarantee that they're going to get rid of Disciples first before giving a warrior up if they have a warrior in their hand or what be it, or at least minimize the chance of them giving you a Disciple. Her quirky randomness doesn't end there. Temple-wise, again, it's hard to narrow down which temple will be most beneficial for her, whether you're going for more faith points, or going for more defense, or going for more draw power. It's really up to you what you want to use. Gameplay-wise, I don't know where to put her, whether it be early game, mid game, or late game. This is one god I can't say is really good for competitive or dueling or 1v1 or serious gameplay, but she is going to be fun to play with if you get a chance to grab her if you're playing with 6 other people, or I should say 5 other people for a party of 6. Next god's going to be Khonsu. There's not really much to say, it's very straightforward abilities. First ability, Blood Moon, pay 1 life off the god. For the rest of the turn, all your gray or colorless or moon warriors get act plus attack 2. So this means that aside from red warriors, you can have any other warriors that are gray also have the attack ability. So you have 2 options for attack cards. So if you're not getting a lot of attack cards or red warriors, you can just use the gray colored warriors to compensate for the attacks. This does mean that if you want to go all in on the offensive, you can do that with this ability. You can simply do the pay 1, attack 2 for Seraph, chain that to Jack for attack 2, chain that for Cherry Emblem for attack 2. So you're going to be able to just keep attacking. That's what's going to be great about this god, is you're going to have that constant offense. Instead of having to change the other abilities to get into a red warrior to attack, you can just keep attacking with colorless or gray warriors and into red warriors and just keep stacking the combo that way. Khonsu's second ability, Purifying Light. Very straightforward. Pay 1, gain 1 HP. That's all you have to do. Pretty simple, keeps you alive, keeps you going, keeps your ability for a Blood Moon paid up. That's why Khonsu is just pretty straightforward. Temple-wise, I would say of the 3 temples access to, Temple of Edfu would be the better option, simply because it's going to be an offensive temple, so you're going to be gaining points on the temple for attacking, and you're going to be able to pay 2 of the temple to increase the attack by 2. Gameplay-wise, I would say that Khonsu is pretty good all game, just because early game, if you want to be on the offense and you just see gray warriors you can snag, you can still attack with those. So you're going to always have that option to attack early, mid, or late game, even if you don't have a lot of red warriors. If you get the gray ones, you can still make the attack swift, which is really good. Next guy is going to be Osiris. Osiris play comes in with its ability to banish cards or react to banishments going on. Osiris' first ability, Judgment of the Dead, is a react. When a warrior is banished, discard 1 card. If you discard a card, it's a warrior of the same color, put that banished warrior in your discard pile instead. So this gives you the accessibility to claim warriors as they're being banished. Since it is a react, you do it multiple times. It doesn't have that restriction of once per turn or anything like that. But you do discard cards from your hand, and they have to be the same color, so that's the requirement. This means you can use some interesting shenanigans with certain warriors, such as Deva, or Charumbrim, or Jackal. For example, in Deva's ability, choose a player, banish the top card from that player's deck. If it's a warrior and it gets banished, you can always do Osiris' effect to get that warrior for yourself if you have the same color to discard for it, or a Charumbrum, which his ability is going to be the first one. Take the bottom card of the warrior deck and place it on top of your deck, banish Charumbrum at the end of your turn. You can actually save Charumbrum and keep using that because it's going to be returned back to your discard pile. And same with Jackal. Jackal's banish any card in any discard pile. Banish Jackal during the discard phase. You can actually get Jackal back by doing Osiris' effect. From the previous set, Pandora is going to be one of the cards that are going to benefit this because it does banish one warrior from your hand or in your discard pile. If you do so, banish warrior from another player's discard pile. So you can get rid of your opponent's warriors, but you can also save them by using that react to get that warrior back into your discard pile. Keep in mind that this is not a canceling ability, it's a complementing a banishment. So if a banish gets resolved and just played through, you can use this ability to take that warrior that got banished and put it into your discard pile. It's not canceling the banishment, it's just changing the result of where that card ends up after it's been banished. Osiris' second effect, Eater of the Dead, is an act you can use on your turn. Reincarnate a warrior from the Nether Realm and gain one life. So that's pretty strong because Reincarnate's an interesting effect. I think it's the only one that has Reincarnate available. I don't recall if Reincarnate's in Battle 9 Realms, but what that means is that you can choose a warrior from the Netherworld and it get reincarnated, so it gets sent back from the pile it was recruited from. And that can be a little confusing at times, depending on how the pile sorted, but it would return back to the Hall of Heroes and you gain 1 life. Temple-wise, of the 3 options that are available, I would say the Temple of Karnak would be the better option, just because it involves a lot of warrior and disciple banishment and banishing warriors. It's going to involve a lot of banishment, and Osiris' ability to react to banishment or reincarnating a warrior, it's definitely going to become very useful. Gameplay wise, I would say Osiris is going to be better during mid to late game, just because early game, there's not going to be a lot of banishing going on from warriors or god effects. Banishing mostly occurs more later in the middle and later in the game when a lot of warriors on the field, a lot of effects are going off. So mid and late game, Osiris is definitely going to be stronger than he would be during the early game. Next card is going to be Ra. His abilities are very straightforward, but it's one of those straightforwards that's actually really simple, but very, very good. Ra's first abilities, Rays of Destruction, act, discard a red warrior, remove 1 HP for 1 god. Now there's 2 interesting things going on with his first ability. One, you have to discard a red warrior. That's not interesting, self-explanatory, but what's going on is remove 1 point from 1 god, 1 life point from 1 god. So that's pretty big and interesting because that's not an attack. So if a player has a Sacred Guardian or a Temple Guard or some warrior that press defensiveness, that's not going to be able to work against it because it's not an attack. Of course, if Sacred Guardian from the previous set is used, it does have this banish this card to cancel the use of ability god, so you can use that to cancel that ability from occurring, but ultimately it's really if you want to use that up or not. But that is one of those chip away kind of things because you will be losing HP slowly by this ability. So I don't want to say it's unblockable, but it is one of those things that you have to figure out what you're going to do against that. Now, discarding a red warrior is pretty tough because typically you want to be able to attack, but if you know your opponent has a full hand of defenders, you can just do that ability to take that 1 HP off them if it's that 1 HP left to win. Alternatively, the warrior Nefertiti, which I cannot pronounce, I'm just going to go Nef. So the warrior Nef takes a warrior from your discard pile and adds it to your hand, and it's also a red at the end of the chain. So that means that if you do use Ra's effect to discard a red warrior, you can use Nef to get that warrior back, and since her following chain color is red, you can attack with that warrior. Ra's other ability, Rays of Light, choose 1 warrior in the Netherworld, purchase that warrior as if it was in the Hall of Heroes. Again, it's pretty simplistic, but it does have a huge impact, such as the warrior Charumbrum, which adds a warrior from the Hall of Heroes to your deck and then gets banished. You can actually use that to bring this card back into your deck. So you can keep... It's basically having a third Hall of Heroes that you have access to, and you can pick whatever warrior is in there. Up to 3 temples available for Ra. It's kind of a hard to say which one you want is best because they're all going to be... It's up to you, really. None of them really stand out amazingly with him. You can always go for the Luxor Temple, which is going to be, you can put a Disciple from the Hall of Heroes on top of your deck, so you can gain more Disciples that way. Or you can always go for the Temple of Karnak, there you go, which is more Faith Points, or the Temple of Anu. It really depends on what kind of playstyle you're going to go for or what warriors are available. Placement-wise, I'd say Ra is pretty much good. I'd say more towards mid and late game. His first ability is great all game, but his second ability, that's going to be a little dicey just because early game there's not going to be a lot of stuff in the Netherworld. It's going to be mid and late game, it's going to be more Netherworld cards to choose from. Next god is going to be Murdock, who I sometimes call Murdock because I can't read. This guy is like literally one of the biggest cheeses in this game. First ability, Slayer of the Beast, is a react. When a warrior attacks Murdock, pay 2 life during a discard phase, banish that attacking warrior. So that is a huge defense. So that means if you have someone big out there, like Ares pumped up, or perhaps you have a Moot, and you attack, it doesn't matter if the attack was blocked or if the attack was taken, if he takes the damage or he blocks the damage. At the end of the discard phase, Murdock could pay 2, and that warrior gets banished. That means you're going to be losing warriors left and right fighting Murdock. That's what makes him very irritating to go against. It does cost him 2 HP to do it though, and he can do it for each warrior that attacked him, but it's something to keep in mind. On the flip side, abilities like Ra's remove ability, where it removes 1 HP from an enemy, that overcomes that. So that bypasses, that's where the remove is an interesting concept versus attack. You can't defend against the remove, because it's not something that's being attacked, it's something you play a defense card for. His second ability, which makes it really irritating to go against, or when he's on the offense, is Master of the Magic. React, when playing a warrior, pay 1 to swap the warrior's primary color with a secondary color of your choice. So that ability, you might have to talk it out, but it has some implications to the rules, the way it works, and the way it's worded. So let's say you attack with Jackal. So you attack with Jackal, but you also want to attack with a Moot. You can only attack with one, you have no way to combo them together. So depending on how you and the other players understand his ability, is that you want to call it out before you go further down the chain. So what I would do is, I would play Jackal, and when I play Jackal, I will use the ability, when playing a warrior, pay 1, swap the primary color with a secondary color of your choice. So I'm going to play Jackal, use his ability, swap Jackal's red with a green, and then play a Moot afterward. That's how we've been playing it, just because it would make more sense, because it's when playing a warrior. In order to play a next warrior, the warrior has to chain the previous color. If the color is not the same, you can't play it. So we've been playing it that you have to make the call when you're playing the first warrior you want to change the color for the second warrior to chain into. That's just something to keep in mind. We've been playing it that way just because we want to make sure it's straightforward. It's really just, you don't want to miss the window to play that ability, whether it's going to be before and after, but we've been doing it before because to us it makes the most sense. Temple-wise, of the 3 temples he has access to, I would say Edfu might be the more beneficial one, just if you're going to go on the attack with his second ability, the Master of Magic. If you were going to be on the defensive side, then using the Temple of Nabu will be better, because that does boost defense, because again, whether or not he takes damage, he gets that ability, but the less damage you take, the better, because you still have to pay 2 HP. You don't want to have to start losing a portion or part of HP, 1 HP, 2 HP, and then use that to lose 2 HP to ability. Point being, you want to play, if you want to play defensive, Temple of Nabu. If you want to play offensive, Temple of Edfu. Placement wise, because of his 2 abilities, and the 2 temples complementing one of the abilities depends on what kind of playstyle you want. It's really hard to say. I would say he's good more mid and late game, because at early game you're not going to have a lot of attackers. So using that ability is going to be good to take out the few attacks your opponent has when they have a lot going. But later game, when you have a lot of combos going on, being able to switch combos is useful, and be able to discard, during the discard phase, being able to get rid of your opponent's attackers is useful, because then they're going to be out of combos, or what be it. Mid-late game, I would say really good. Early game, it's going to be kind of clutch, but I would say he does have potential in late game, early game too. So he may be good at all 3 parts of the game, but I would say mid and late would be his better spots. Next is going to be Ishtar. You might recognize her face. She is on the cover of the box, and she is also on the cover of the playmat. So she is kind of like the first character you see in the River of Souls expansion set. I would say she's a very offensive god in a way when it comes to her utilities, because first ability, Inspiring Gaze, is a react. If a card allows you to draw a card, pay 1, draw 2 cards. So that's really useful, because you're going to be drawing your deck really fast. Anytime you play a warrior, or any card that allows you to draw a card, you pay 1 point offer, and you can draw 2 cards from your deck. That's really useful. Interestingly, in River of Souls, there's only 2 cards that I can see at first glance that have draw abilities, which is Jinn and Sphinx. It's only in the Battle 9 Realms that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards that have draw abilities. So within her set alone, she's not going to be as strong because there's not too many draw potentials. Her second ability is really awesome. It's going to be Preparation for Battle. React, at the beginning of your discard phase, place a red warrior from discard pile on top of your deck. So this is something you have to keep in mind about this. That's really good because essentially you can keep recycling red warriors, so your following turn you're always going to have something on the offense. Only thing is it's at the beginning of your discard phase. So if it's your first turn or you have nothing in your discard phase, you can't save or bring back a warrior, a red warrior you made a play that turn because it's not in the discard phase. Cards are discarded in the discard phase, but this is at the beginning, so it's before it gets discarded. That's just something to keep in mind with how the timing works, because even though it's at the discard phase, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to the discard phase. This is at the beginning. Of the 3 temples she has access to, I would say Temple Edfu, again, the offensive temple. That's going to be the more beneficial one because of her ability of preparation for battle to save a red warrior from the discard pile and put it on top of your deck so you can draw it the following turn. Well, not save, but basically bring it back. You're going to always be in the offense. So being able to add more to attack will be more beneficial than the other 2 temples. Placement wise, a little bit tricky to say, but when you have warriors that let you draw, whether it's early game, mid game, or late game, her first ability is useful, but being able to save a red warrior may not be good on the first turn, but every turn after, if you have a discard pile, again, being a discard pile, that red warrior has to be in the discard pile to grab it. It's going to be very useful. So mid, late game, I think it's a better time to shine. Early game, it's going to be not as beneficial because you're going to have as big a discard pile. So when you have to shuffle your deck, your discard pile is going to be 0 more consistently. Next god is going to be Anu. Anu is one of those gods where its abilities are kind of, I don't know really how to place it or what to say. They're more like utilities in a way. The first ability, Lord of the Sky, act, return a warrior in the Hall of Heroes to the warrior deck and reshuffle the warrior deck. So what that means is that you can choose, if there's a warrior out there you don't want your opponent to grab, you can use that ability to return them to the warrior deck and hopefully pull out something that maybe not going to be beneficial for them. This means that you can, I guess as the name implies, control the heavens. This means you can kind of control what your opponent may decide to purchase or not purchase with that. So it kind of puts you on a more strategic offense. The second ability, Destruction of the Wicked. Pay 2, if any player attacked you since last turn, banish one warrior disciple in their discard pile. So somewhat similar to Murdock, or Murdock as I call him. If your opponent attacks you, that following turn, you can pay 2 and have that warrior or any disciple in discard pile banished. So unless they can save their warrior, pull the warrior out, or what be it, if you get attacked, you can just get rid of their warriors. It's kind of an after effect, unlike Murdock, which is Marduk, whose effect is as it happens, or the same turn it happens. This is going to be after the attack and when it comes to your turn. It's kind of hard to say what warrior will really benefit Anu. I can't really think of one that really works off these 2 abilities very well. I would say maybe something from this set, such as Madrid or Kalululu, which on your turn, you can force your opponent to lose a card from their hand. Maybe that's going to be the best beneficial option for his second ability, because if you play one of these 2, they lose a card from their hand, and then you can use this act. Since you were attacked last turn, you can banish the warrior disciple that in their discard pile. So that pretty much would be the closest thing I say in warriors that are beneficial to that. The previous set though of Pisces, again, same thing. Any card any warrior I should say, that allows you to make your opponent discard during your turn, and then you can use that act ability to punish that discard. That's going to be pretty much the biggest takeaway from his ability here. Temple wise, once again, I'm kind of caught up on which temple will be most beneficial. None of these temples really play with his abilities too much. If you're looking for getting more disciples, Temple of Luxor. If you're looking for more draw power, Temple of Khonshu. If you're looking for more of just faith points, Karnak. None of them really play off his abilities too well, so it just depends on what you want to do, really. Placement wise, I'd say he's definitely good towards mid and late game, maybe some early game, because his ability of banishing warriors if you get attacked, well, you're going to have more attacks going on mid and late game, and hopefully maintain your HP more efficiently. So that's going to be, it's going to make your opponent think twice about attacking you, because if they can't save their warrior or whatever warriors in their discard pile during your turn, they're going to lose it. Early game, not too much of that going on. Late game, it's definitely going to be more, or late game, mid game, definitely more beneficial. Early game, though, I would say his time to shine will be mid and late. Early game does still have its fair use with his abilities. Nexus N Chi. N Chi is another god whose abilities are kind of like utilities. One is a canceller, which is really good. Her first ability, Lord of Abzu. React at the beginning of your discard phase, take one warrior from your hand and place it on top of your deck. This is what I was talking about earlier when it comes to beginning of your discard phase, take one warrior from your hand. So this is very important to understand, is when a discard phase occurs, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to the discard phase. Her ability is at the beginning before you discard. So at the start of the discard phase, you would basically save or choose one warrior from your hand and put it on the top of your deck. Then you would proceed to discard your hand into your discard pile. So that's just something to keep in mind. Again, it's play on words on when the effect occurs. It's at the beginning of the discard phase. You don't want to miss that window of opportunity. Her second ability, Champion of Humanity, which is actually the same as her title, is a react, pay 1 life, cancel ability that is affecting a warrior. So that's pretty big. That's one of the big canceling abilities that the gods in the River of Souls has. Not a lot of them have too many things you can just pay on the fly, but that's something you do several times. So, several times, beyond how many times you can pay for 1 HP, that is. This means that any ability, whether it's a god or warrior ability affecting another warrior, you have control over that. And what's nice about this is that it's not just your warriors, it's just affecting a warrior. So it doesn't matter what warrior, it doesn't matter if it's your warrior, another player's warrior, it's any warrior. So if someone was to do something, such as banish a warrior to gain an ability of something else, you can actually stop that from happening so they don't be able to play off that ability. It's just interesting thing you can do with her. She has a lot of cancel potential and a lot of ways to ruin an opponent's combos. Temple-wise, I would say out of the 3 temples she has access to, none of them really complement her ability very well. So again, it's going to be up to you what you want to do and how you want to, what kind of playstyle you're going for. You can always do one that's going to be putting Disciples from the Hall of Heroes onto your top of your deck, or offensive, boosting attacks. Gameplay wise, I say N Chi is pretty good, pretty much all around, honestly. Early, mid, late game. Her ability, Champion of Humanity, that's the big one. That's what makes her useful all the time, because early game, mid game, late game, anything that affects a warrior, either another warrior's effect or a god's effect, that will cancel that out and save the warrior or stop whatever they're trying to do. That's something to keep in mind. Next god is going to be Eresh, whose name I can't pronounce, so I just call Eresh for short. This one's going to be another utility god. You know, and honestly, it seems like River Souls has a lot more gods that have more utility abilities, rather than abilities that are pretty straightforward for offense, or abilities that are pretty straightforward for defense. This mix, if you play these 2 sets together, this mix definitely makes the game, especially if it's a team game. If you're doing 2-on-2-on-2-on-2, or 2-on-2-on-2, you can do 8 players if you want. But the idea is that if you do a team battle and you get a god that has utilities and a god that's more offensive or defensive, definitely create an interesting gameplay. Just a side note there. But Eresh's abilities, Ruler of... I never bothered reading that until now. I just read Ruler of and then her ability. But Ruler of Irkala, react, pay 1 life, cancel an ability that is affecting the Netherworld. So something like Ra's ability, which allowed him to buy warriors from the Netherworld, this actually stops that from happening. Or any kind of ability, any kind of warrior card, god card, god ability, anything that affects the Netherworld, you are stopping them from taking anything from the Netherworld with this ability. So it's canceling the use of the Netherworld for other players, which is pretty good. Her second ability, Rebirth, banish a warrior from your discard pile, gain faith points equal to the warrior's cost. So that's going to be kind of, I don't want to say last ditch, but it's definitely going to be a ditch effort. If you need faith points to buy warriors that are out there, something you really want, and you're low on disciples, you can always do that ability. Of course, if you bought something expensive like a moot for 6, that's pretty much, you used up 6 points to get that card, and now you're losing it for 6 more points, but you're going to be using that to get something better like Talmat or something. But again, if you need those faith points and you need it really badly, you have that option to do. Temple wise, of the 3 she has access to, again, hard to say which one's better for her or which one complements her abilities. You can always go for more attack power, or attack strength I should say. You can always go for more faith points on top of her ability to get faith points. Or you can always just go for the Temple of Anu. I think maybe this one, Temple of Karnak, might be the better option. Just because her ability is going to be banishing a warrior, and this react is when a warrior is banished, it gains points on it. So that's something you can kind of work together. Again, really depends on what you want to do in this one. Gameplay wise, hard to say. I would say she's good all game wise, just because of her ability of canceling the Netherworld usage, or canceling abilities that affect the Netherworld. That's one reason she's going to be good all game. But early game, there's not going to be a lot of Netherworld shenanigans going on. Hopefully not a lot going on. But mid and late game, where things are really popping, that's where her ability is going to come into play a lot. So I'd say mid and late game is going to be her best spot. Early game might not be that great, but she can still do some things during then. The last god available in the River of Souls set will be Baal. Baal, once again, is another god whose abilities are more of a utility abilities. One doesn't lean forward for offense or defense. You could argue defensively, but his abilities are, again, more of utility abilities. Baal's first ability, Golden Idol, is a react. When a warrior ability causes you to gain life, gain 1 additional life. So that's pretty huge because aside from getting your opponent to 0 HP, another way to win the game is first god to 25 HP wins. And this is a react, so that means every time you gain life, this pops up. It's not going to be just one time, it's every time you gain life that pops up. So in River of Souls, the obvious cards are going to be Hatsu and Deva, since those add life to your god. Those are going to be the obvious 2 cards that's going to be beneficial for Baal. Aside from that, from the Battle 9 realms, Gemini, Mermaid, and Taurus are going to be the other 3 warriors that are going to help proc that ability and gain more HP. And hopefully, if you really want, you can try to win getting 25 HP by playing defensive. Baal's second ability, Lord of Fertility, react, pay 1, double the faith points granted by a warrior or disciple. So keep in mind about this ability, it's not pay 1 for all warrior disciple, it's per. So each warrior disciple you play that gives you faith points, you pay 1 to double granted by a warrior or that warrior disciple, a warrior disciple, not all the warrior disciple, just the one being played. Of the 3 temples he has access to, I would say the Luxor temple, that's going to be really the closest thing that's going to work strongly together with his abilities. Outside of that, you can always go for more draw power with Khonshu, my goodness, I cannot pronounce these names, or Temple of Anu, but the Luxor temple is going to be the more beneficial one for him. Gameplay wise, I'm going to say he's pretty good early game, which is a shock because a lot of the gods aren't that good early game, just because his ability of paying to double faith points, that's pretty huge. You're going to get a lot of buy power really fast, get a lot of nice warriors into your deck. Mid and late game, that's still going to be useful, but ultimately if you want to play the defensive strategic game and try to get the 25 HP, that's something you can do with Baal because of his first ability. That's going to be a general overview of all the gods, their abilities, how it works exactly, warriors that work with them, and their placement in the game, as well as what temples work most beneficial with them. If you did see anything wrong or have any opinions or want to mention something, do tell me or let me know in the comments so I can correct myself in later videos, or just get a better insight for everyone and myself on what I missed or what these gods can do with the warriors in this set or the previous set, Battle 9 Realms.